All right, let's get into one of the most brilliant and honestly tragic stories of our time. We're talking about Bobby Fischer, a genius who conquered the entire world of chess only to be completely consumed by his own mind. And this quote, it's the perfect place to start. You see, for him, this wasn't just some arrogant boast. It was genuinely how he saw himself. Chess wasn't what made him a genius. It was just the stage where he decided to prove it. And that single idea would shape his entire incredible life. I mean, think about it. He reaches the absolute peak of his profession, does the impossible, and then, at the height of his fame, he just disappears. So the big question we have to ask is, what happened? To figure out the man who vanished, we first got to understand the prodigy who took the world by storm.
You know, Fischer's story doesn't start in some fancy chess club. It starts in a world of pretty deep isolation and obsession. Chess became everything to him, really a way to escape a tough childhood with a single mom working multiple jobs just to make ends meet.
Okay, the speed here is just insane. At age 6, his sister gets him a chess set. By 13, he plays a game so brilliant that grandmasters are still studying it today. It's literally called the game of the century. And by 15, he's a grandmaster. This wasn't just a kid with a talent. This was an absolute force of nature.
Now look, you can debate IQ scores all day long, but this number tells you how the world saw him. He was framed as this once-in-a-generation mind, a raw intellect so powerful it seemed like he was playing a different game from everyone else. And believe me, he was going to need every ounce of that power for the fight that was just around the corner.
And that incredible mind was about to be tested on the world stage. Because this was never just about moving pieces on a board. Right in the middle of the Cold War, the chessboard became a symbolic battlefield. And Bobby Fischer, he was America's lone warrior against an entire empire.
And this just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you have the Soviet Union pouring massive state resources into chess to prove their intellectual superiority. They had a whole army of coaches and grandmasters who would even collude to make sure a Soviet won. And on the other side, just Bobby, a high school dropout from Brooklyn, completely self-taught, who learned Russian just so he could read their chess magazines. It was the ultimate David versus Goliath story. So before he could even face the champion, Fischer had to go through the world's other top players. And he didn't just beat them, he demolished them. He won 2 matches with a perfect 6-0 score, back-to-back. I mean, that was something nobody had ever seen at this level. The Soviet government was so embarrassed by Mark Taimanov's loss, they basically ruined his career. Fischer wasn't just playing a game, he was waging war.
So, this all leads to Reykjavik, Iceland for what was hyped as the match of the century. The entire world was watching as Fischer got ready to face the reigning world champion, the Soviet Union's own Boris Spassky.
And this quote, wow, it tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. For Bobby Fischer, the game wasn't just about making the right moves. It was about total psychological destruction. The goal was to just shatter his opponent's will to even fight back.
But the match kicks off with just total chaos. In the first game, he makes a blunder so basic it stunned everyone. Then, complaining about the TV cameras, he just doesn't show up for game 2. He forfeits. So now he's down 2-0, and it seriously looked like the whole thing was over before it even began.
This is how big it got. It became a matter of U.S. national security. Henry Kissinger, the national security advisor, personally called Fischer and begged him not to quit. This thing was way bigger than chess now. Fischer finally agreed to play, but only if Game 3 was held in a tiny back room with no cameras. And Spassky, in an amazing show of sportsmanship, actually agreed. And from that moment on, Fischer started one of the greatest comebacks in sports history.
He did it, he won, he became world champion. He was an American hero who had single-handedly toppled the Soviet chess dynasty. But for a guy like Fischer, who had chased this one single goal his whole life, the question was, what now? His victory wasn't a new beginning. It was the end.
Almost as soon as he won, Fischer just retreated from the world. The same intense focus that let him see 20 moves ahead on a chessboard, well, it turned inward. He started seeing conspiracies everywhere. He thought his food was being poisoned. He even had his dental fillings removed because he was afraid enemy agents were sending radio signals into his brain. It was a complete descent into paranoia, and his public statements became just vile and hateful.
And then came the moment that really sealed his fate. In 1975, it was time for him to defend his title. He made a list of impossible demands, and when the Chess Federation wouldn't meet every single one, He simply refused to play. He forfeited the world championship. The crown he had fought his entire life for, he just gave it away. He wouldn't play another serious game of chess for 2 decades.
And so began the final, dark chapter of his life. The world champion became a recluse, a ghost who would only pop up to spew hate on obscure radio shows. He was a king in exile, completely trapped inside his own mind. He did pop up again in 1992 for a big-money rematch against his old rival Spassky, but the match was in Yugoslavia, which was under strict U.S. sanctions at the time. The U.S. government sent him an official letter warning him not to play. So what did Fischer do? He held a press conference, pulled out the letter, and literally spat on it in front of all the cameras. And just like that, he was a wanted fugitive in his own country. His final years were just a sad story of a man on the run. He was finally arrested in Japan in 2004 and was about to be sent back to the U.S., but then an unlikely savior stepped in. Iceland, the country where he had his greatest triumph, granted him citizenship. He died there in 2008 from kidney failure, a condition that was probably treatable, but his paranoia kept him from getting proper medical help. He was 64 years old, the same number of squares on a chessboard. And the incredible irony is that after a lifetime spent pushing people away, building walls, and choosing isolation, these were reportedly his last words. It's just a tragic final thought from a man who spent his life winning battles on the board, only to realize at the very end what he'd lost everywhere else.
And that really leaves us with this one big question. Fischer's story is this chilling reminder of that razor-thin line between genius and madness. He poured every single part of himself into becoming the best, but that very same obsession that made him a champion is also what destroyed him. So it really makes you think, what is the true price you pay for that kind of singular focus?